So when did you first go to Sing Sing?
I first went in 2015. I had done an opera called Dead Man Walking, the film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Of course.
and I played the role of the nun, who's the spiritual
That's
advisor.
Heggie, right?
Jake Heggie.
Jake Heggie, yeah.
Yeah. And I had done that a couple of times before, and it's one of those pieces that you go in and you're different when you come out of
An
it.
incredible story.
And I sat down and heard about this program, and without even thinking, I just said, well, I have to go. And the directive that I got before I went was they want you to bring opera to sing. They're going to write for you, but they want to hear opera. And I did it.
What was the surprising response when you got there?
So, okay.
Or when you performed? And
So they gave me an amazing introduction. They want opera, I'm going to give them opera. So I introduced it. I said, do you guys know that hallelujah, and the whole crowd goes, hallelujah, hallelujah. I said, I'm going to sing a song that was written by that guy, the guy who wrote that.
Right.
And I said, do you guys know Cleopatra? Yeah, okay. I said, so I'm singing a song. You have to pretend that I'm her. And she just lost her lover. So and it's in Italian. You're going to hear me say piangerò, piangerò, which means I'm crying, and it's really slow. And then as I'm introducing this, I'm like, what have I done? So the middle section's going to go really fast, and she's going to say, they can do whatever they want, but I'm going to get revenge on the guy who killed my lover. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm explaining this at Sing Sing in front of 200 people. And I said, but then she's going to realize that revenge isn't going to do anything. And she goes back to piangero. So I start singing, and it starts really quiet. And the middle section, ma poi merda d'ogni torno. I was really going for it. They start screaming out like Shakespeare's Globe Theater or something. Yeah, you make him pay. Yeah, you gotta. And then they started doing all this, and I was like, okay. But then when it drops to nothing, and she goes, piangi, it was the most electric silence I've ever heard in my life.
Wow.
They felt it in the core of their being, and they jumped to their feet and screamed and screamed and screamed at the end. Yeah. It was such a testament to, they don't need music education. You don't have to have this. They felt it in a way that they could identify with.
I think it also deals with the reality that opera is an incredible medium. You can deal with huge, bigger than life issues, and you're not preaching at anybody because it's it's talking about these massive things.
After that performance, did the brothers inside, do you remember any specific things?
I came back about 10 months later, and one of the guys from the program, who had been the most sort of reticent and kind of closed, he came up to me first thing when I came back, and he said, I didn't know opera existed before you came here.
Wow.
And now I want to know everything there is to know about it, and I have to write one.
Yeah.
I came back a couple years later, and we did a duet from his opera Tabula Rasa.
Incredible.
And I think the thing, you're talking about the thing that it was just like, it explains everything I'm feeling inside. It's that big.
Yeah.
And it can't contain it. And
But I think that what you just said sums up the gift of being able to go to Sing Sing and go connect with the human beings in there, because introducing somebody to something they never knew existed, and then for them to be able to join you later is like a true journey. It's like, the people that I've met inside that are incarcerated, I always meet people that have been through a true journey, like have went from the darkest places you could be in life, through their own pain to pain they've issued out to other people, to being like some of the most enlightened and spiritual and beautiful human beings I met.
We perceive of prison as this thing that is denial, but the spirit isn't here. It's not in walls.
Right.
It's not in columns of concrete and metal. The spirit isn't here. And so, man, I would imagine that sitting in front of an incredible artist like yourself and dealing with that for 2, 3, 10 years, that would be an amazing opportunity to reflect.
Well, yeah, I mean, the goal is to for our people to not have to go to prison to be able to go within.
That's right.
Right, you know, because I mean, it's tough to get those gifts and to know, like, as you're saying, somebody might be on death row or may not ever be back in society as we know it, but they still are beautiful, incredible human beings. But I mean, I'm really keen on being like preventative towards like people going to prisons, you know, and
The mass incarceration system is the most horrifying thing that goes against communities, and you know what communities I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's not preventative.
Yeah.
It's
But that's what, you know, that's where I feel like we as artists, musicians, activists, human beings, that's where we come in and combat the system.
Of course.
That's where, you know, the revolution is in the work that we're doing. Like,
when you put a saxophone in the hands of a young person, you're giving them a revolutionary weapon.
yeah,
When you teach them to freestyle, or when you teach them an aria, you're giving them the keys to fight back with all the fervor they can.
Yeah.
Because they know that once you open this,
that's where you like.
Or this.
or this, and when you connect the two,
Yeah, voila. Yeah.
I've been in certain prisons where individuals have been like, I've never been to a concert before. And we performed there, and that was my first concert. I'm talking about 60-year-old men.
God.
yeah,
And for them to find, like what we saying, find themselves through that journey, that freedom can't be taken away, ever.
What I find so powerful in the experiences I have there, I love the concerts at Sing Sing, but the workshops where you're side by side and you see the heart and the soul that they pour into this. Every word, is this word right? If I think that right, and to witness a grown man in our society have the courage to first of all express it,
Yeah.
and then they stand up in front of their peers there and they sing. Singing already, playing music is already such an open-hearted, brave thing to do. The first concert I did, Joseph had written this amazing duet for the two of us. I just had a little bit, and his life journey. And he got up and he said, I want to dedicate this to the victims of my crime in front of his peer. And I thought, we have so much to learn from that, because that owning what you are, asking for forgiveness, and having the courage to share it. And I think that a lot of that is the preventative work that you're talking about, is we don't teach kids, we don't teach human beings. It's okay to open.
Yeah.
It's okay to show who you are and to not know who you are. But let's find it through this. Here's a saxophone, here's a pen and paper. You're like, figure out who you are.
Well, that's why I think it's like so powerful to bring these things to people who are dealing with different struggles and traumas, and because, man, music for me was like truly an outlet. I started to learn about myself. It's things I said in my music that I never even knew I felt in a way, like, and it gave me also a way to connect with human beings, and I just know art does that. So for us to be able to see artists that are incarcerated have that experience, and like you're saying, even in preventative way, if I knew like at 12, 13 about meditation, or, you know, just like ways to be intentional, or therapy, or, you know, these things, but music embodied all of that in certain ways. Like for me, I mean, but it's still, you still need the therapy too and all those other things.
I think there's nothing more vulnerable than the human voice. And when you get people to sing, if you go to a party or something and you go to, sometimes there are people who just will not sing because they're embarrassed or ashamed, or they don't think they have a voice. And when you get these men to, there's a thing that we did called the Oye Como Va, the famous Tito Puente tune, and they freestyle. They almost do like it's called soñando, where they sing and make up verses. Man, I was in tears because they were like, their voices were so full of vulnerability, but floating through the air on gossamer wings. Man, these men were singing loud, proud, and it was just, to me, this just was some of the most touching stuff I've ever seen.
When you say that when you were studying music and all that, it was expressing things you didn't even know was in there. That's what comes out in the voice.
Yeah.
There's something primal
Yeah.
in it that you might not have any clue that's happening up here, but it moves through you, and that actually breaks the fascia of emotion apart
Yeah.
somehow. And even if you don't have to do it in a concert, you don't have to do anything professional, just the physical experience of that, it breaks you open.
You know, hopefully this playlist will somehow do what music does. It like allows you to understand humanity in different ways, and you can feel that forgiveness just through the music. When you hear some beautiful music coming, you're like, wait, this is from prison? like this is that amazing, this singing opera, or this person doing poems or classical music. I've seen people playing classical music in one of our programs, and I'm like, you know, it just automatically makes you see the human being.
I think one of the reasons I'm very happy to be a part of sharing these playlists is it's a very true way of looking at a segment of the population that often is diminished into a two-dimensional look. We see it in cinema, or we see it in thing, and we think we know what that is, what that person is like. And it will open up a whole world about how much they feel, how they explore their struggle, and how much we have to absorb from it. They talk about love, they talk about struggle, they talk about hope. And I think that tenacity and the open-heartedness of it, and the hard work that they do to create these pieces, to write these things, many of us, we don't do that hard work.
Yeah.
We have a roof over our head. We go to work. We have, can eat what we want. So I think it will just shake people up in a way to feel deeply.